My friend's husband always hits on me when he's been drinking. I told myself it was harmless, just alcohol, just jokes. When I finally drew a boundary, he panicked. Not because he was sorry, but because he was afraid I'd tell her. I've been married for 8 years. Not a perfect marriage, but a steady one. The kind built on shared routines, quiet loyalty, and the assumption that neither of us would ever do something that blew up our entire social circle. I never imagined the biggest crack in that stability wouldn't come from my husband, but from my friends. I met Lena in my late 20s, shortly after she married Mark. We bonded the way adult women do, over work stress, bad TV, and the comfort of having someone who already knew the messier parts of life. She was warm, loyal, a little self-deprecating. Mark was charming in that easy, practiced way. Always the guy refilling drinks, telling stories, making people laugh. At first, I genuinely liked him. Everyone did. The first time something felt off was so small, I didn't even register it as a warning sign. We were at a backyard barbecue, a few beers deep for everyone. Lena had gone inside to help another friend with food. Mark leaned against the fence next to me and said, "You look really good tonight." I remember smiling automatically. "Thanks, it's just a dress." He nodded, took a sip of his beer. "Still, you've always had great taste." Always. That word stuck with me for a second, then I let it go. Compliments happen. People say dumb things when they drink. Over the next year, it happened again and again. Never blatant. Never something I could point to and say, "That's inappropriate." Just comments that landed a little too close. A lingering look. A joke that felt aimed only at me. If I shifted away, he'd act normal again. If Lena walked in, he'd switch instantly into devoted husband mode. I didn't tell her. Mostly because I didn't trust my own read on it. I didn't want to be the woman who caused drama over vibes. There was also the fact that Mark was always drinking when it happened. Enough that I could explain it away. He's just tipsy. He's friendly when he drinks. He doesn't mean anything by it. Still, I started positioning myself carefully at gatherings, sitting closer to Lena, keeping my husband within arm's reach, making excuses to leave early. My husband noticed before I admitted it to myself. "Why do you always seem tense around Mark?" he asked one night after we got home from a dinner party. "I don't," I said too quickly. He gave me a look. "You do. You barely talked tonight." I shrugged. I was tired. That was true in the sense that emotional avoidance is exhausting. Things escalated the night of Lena's birthday. It was at their house. Small group. Wine instead of beer. Mark was clearly drunker than everyone else. Louder, looser. At one point, Lena asked me to help her find candles in the garage. As soon as we stepped out, Mark followed. "I'll help," he said, already past us. In the garage, Lena got distracted by a phone call. Stepped outside. Left me alone with him for maybe 2 minutes. That was all it took. He leaned in too close. He said, lowering his voice, "I've always felt like we have a connection." My stomach dropped. "I don't think so," I said, keeping my tone light even. "I'm married." "You're married." He laughed, like I'd misunderstood him. "Relax. I'm just saying we get along." I took a step back. "You should probably go help Lena." For the first time, his expression changed. Not angry, not embarrassed, calculating. "Okay," he said slowly. "Just don't make it weird." I replayed that sentence all night. Don't make it weird. As if I was the one standing too close. As if I was the problem waiting to happen. I told myself I'd talk to Lena if it happened again. I needed something concrete. Something undeniable. But part of me was scared. Not of Mark, but of what telling her would do. To her marriage. To our friendship. To the fragile piece of our group. The next few months were quieter. Mark seemed more careful. I relaxed, thinking maybe I'd imagine the intensity of that moment. Then came the wedding weekend. Out of town. Hotel. Open bar. By midnight, Lena was upstairs with a migraine. My husband was playing cards with friends in another room. I went to the bar to grab water. Mark was already there. He smiled when he saw me. A slow, familiar smile. "I was hoping you'd come down," he said. I felt that same cold drop in my chest. "I'm just getting water." He leaned closer anyway. If things were different." I cut him off. "They're not." He looked surprised, then amused. "You don't have to be so defensive." "I do," I said quietly, "because this keeps happening." He opened his mouth, then closed it. For a second, he looked genuinely unsure. "I'd never do anything," he said. "I just say things when I drink." "That doesn't make it okay," I replied. That's when he said it. Soft, almost pleading. Please don't tell Lena. The panic in his eyes was real, and suddenly I realized this wasn't accidental. It wasn't harmless. He knew exactly what he was doing. I took my water and walked away, my hands shaking. Up in the room later, I lay next to my husband, staring at the ceiling, wondering how one conversation had quietly changed everything, and whether staying silent was already a kind of betrayal. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying his face at the bar, how quickly confidence had turned into fear. It made everything feel heavier. This wasn't just drunken awkwardness. This was someone who knew he'd crossed a line and was relying on my silence to erase it. In the morning, my husband noticed immediately. "You're quiet," he said, brushing his teeth, speaking around the toothbrush like he always did. "Did something happen last night?" I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded so tightly my fingers hurt. I almost told him then. The words were right there. But Lena and Mark were still asleep down the hall. We were all driving home together later. It felt like opening a door I couldn't close. "Just didn't sleep well," I said. He studied me in the mirror but didn't push. That somehow made me feel worse. On the drive home, Mark acted normal, almost overly so. He joked with my husband, asked me polite, distant questions like we were coworkers. Lena rested her head against the window, eyes closed, trusting. Every time she laughed at something he said, my chest tightened. After that weekend, I started pulling away for real. I stopped replying quickly to Lena's messages. I skipped group dinners. When she asked if something was wrong, I blamed work, stress, life. All true, just not complete. Mark noticed. The text started a week later, always late. Always casual enough to have plausible deniability. "Did I upset you? I feel like things are weird between us. I hope you know I respect you." I didn't reply. Then one night, after Lena posted a photo of them at a concert, my phone buzzed again. "I never meant to make you uncomfortable. Please don't blow this up." That phrase, "blow this up," made my hands shake, as if the problem was my reaction, not his behavior, as if the truth itself was a bomb I was threatening to drop. I showed my husband the messages the next morning. He read them slowly. Then again. When he looked up, his jaw was tight in a way I'd only seen a few times before. He's hitting on you," he said flatly. "I don't think he'd say it like that," I replied, immediately hating myself for softening it. My husband turned the phone toward me. "If I sent messages like this to one of your friends, how would you feel?" That did it. My eyes burned. "I didn't want to ruin anything," I said. "Lena loves him, and it's always when he's drunk. I kept thinking if I ignored it, it would stop." "And did it?" he asked. I shook my head. He exhaled slowly. "You need to tell her." "I know," I whispered. "I'm just scared." "Of what?" he asked gently. I thought about it. That she won't believe me. That she'll stay with him and I'll lose her anyway. That somehow this becomes my fault. My husband reached for my hand. "Whatever happens, you didn't cause this?" Still, it took me another week to work up the courage. I asked Lena to meet for coffee. Just us. She sounded relieved, like she'd been worried about me pulling away. She smiled when she saw me. "There you are. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever." I wrapped my hands around my mug even though it was too hot. "There's something I need to tell you, and I want you to hear all of it before you react." Her smile faded slightly. "Okay." I told her everything. Not dramatically. Just facts. The comments, the bar, the texts. I showed her the messages. She stared at my phone for a long time. Then she laughed. A short, brittle sound. "He drinks too much sometimes," she said. "You know that." "I do," I replied. "But this wasn't just that." She looked up at me, eyes searching. "Did he touch you?" "No." "Did he say he wanted to sleep with you?" "No." She cut me off. "Then maybe you misread it." The word misread hit harder than I expected. "I was careful," I said quietly. I didn't want to believe it either. She pushed the phone back toward me. "Mark would never cheat on me, and he would definitely never go after you." That hurt. More than anger would have. "I didn't come here to accuse," I said. "I came because I care about you, and because it keeps happening." Her face flushed. "So what am I supposed to do with this?" "Just look at him differently forever." I didn't have an answer. We sat in silence until she finally stood up. "I need time," she said. "I can't deal with this right now." She hugged me stiffly and left. That night, Mark texted me again. "Why would you do this?" "She's devastated." I didn't reply. Instead, I sat on my couch, my husband beside me, realizing that no matter how quietly I told the truth, everything was already changing, and I had no control over what came next. The next few weeks were some of the quietest I've ever lived through. Lena didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't reply to the last message I sent that simply said, "I'm here whenever you want to talk." It sat there, unread, for days. Then it switched to read with no response. That somehow felt worse. Mark, on the other hand, went completely silent. No more late-night texts, no apologies, no explanations. At first, I was relieved. Then the silence started to feel strategic, like he was waiting to see which way things would fall before deciding his next move. Our mutual friends noticed something was off. Invitations slowed. Group chats felt stilted. People stopped tagging both of us in plans, and instead split things quietly, awkwardly. I could feel the question hovering in the background, unasked but heavy. What happened between you and Lena? I didn't volunteer an explanation. I didn't defend myself either. I was too tired. One evening, about a month after the coffee conversation, Lena finally called. I almost didn't answer. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. But I picked up. "Hey," she said. Her voice sounded thinner. "Careful." "Hey," I replied. There was a long pause. Then she said, "I checked his phone." I closed my eyes. "He didn't delete anything," she continued. "Not yours. Not the others." "Others?" I asked quietly. Another pause. A sharp inhale. "There were 2 women from work, one from his old gym. Nothing explicit," she added quickly, like she needed to clarify that for herself. But the tone was the same. Compliments, late-night messages, little lines he could deny if he needed to. I sat down slowly. "He told me I was overreacting," she said. "That you misunderstood him, that you've always been sensitive." My chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "I know," she said. "I didn't want to believe you because believing you meant accepting that this wasn't about alcohol. Or you. It was about him liking the line, and liking that no one crossed it." That was exactly it. Hearing her say it out loud made my eyes sting. "I asked him why you," she continued. "Why someone so close to me. And," I asked. "He said you were safe," she said bitterly. "That you'd never actually do anything. That you were flattered but too loyal to cause trouble." I felt sick. "I told him to leave," she said. "At least for now." We sat in silence again, but this time it felt different. Heavier. Real. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you," she said finally. "I was scared. And I took that out on you." "Thank you for saying that," I replied. And I meant it. We didn't magically go back to normal after that. Trust doesn't reset just because the truth finally surfaces. We met a few times, cautiously. Sometimes we talked about everything. Sometimes we avoided the subject entirely. I let her set the pace. Mark moved into a short-term rental. From what I heard, he was telling people they were working through things. I didn't correct the narrative. I didn't engage at all. One afternoon, months later, I ran into him at the grocery store. He looked tired, smaller somehow. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something. An apology. An explanation. Maybe even another attempt to control the story. I didn't wait. "Please don't," I said calmly. He nodded once, eyes dropping, and walked away. That was the last time I saw him. Lena eventually decided to leave him for good. Not just because of me. Because of the pattern. The way everything had always been just ambiguous enough to excuse. She told me later that once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it. Our friendship isn't what it used to be. It's quieter, more deliberate, but it's honest, and I'll take that over comfort built on silence any day. As for me, I learned something I wish I'd learned earlier. Staying quiet doesn't keep the peace. It just shifts the cost onto you. I didn't cause his behavior. I didn't break their marriage. I didn't blow anything up. I told the truth when it finally became too heavy to carry alone. And that was the moment I stopped feeling ashamed. What makes this situation so uncomfortable isn't just the inappropriate comments. It's how quietly they happen. No big confession. No clear line crossed once. Just small moments stacked on top of each other, all designed to be deniable. And that's exactly why it messes with your head. Mark never needed OP to say yes. He needed her to stay silent, to doubt herself, to worry more about being dramatic than being honest. That's not accidental behavior. That's calculated emotional safety for him, at her expense. And the hardest part? Telling the truth didn't immediately make things better. It made them worse before they got honest. Friendships shifted. Trust cracked. Silence followed. That's the part people don't talk about enough. Doing the right thing doesn't come with instant relief. But in the end, patterns matter more than excuses. Alcohol didn't cause this. Opportunity didn't cause this. Mark's entitlement did. OP didn't betray anyone by speaking up. She protected herself when no one else could. And sometimes that's the only clean ending you get.